Last week I told you that altcoins were relatively cheap in those BTC pairs, and I think we're starting to get a little bit of a bubbling around rotation. Ethereum holds the keys to it all. Now, dominance is still dropping slightly. You could argue there's still a long way to go here, but the main one, Ethereum, has been on a horrible run for the last 3 years, and it's starting to look a little bit healthier. It's also several BTC pairs are breaking out. If you've been following the channel, you'll know this. But here's what is starting to really tickle my goose a little bit. There's a bit of retail popping back, a little bit of sentiment changing, a little bit of comments here and there on my YouTube videos from the past asking about coins that I sold probably 3 years ago now. Are they returning? But let's not get excited. We may be just witnessing the first little shift in change of character around people, but there is still some political bollocks to get through. There's FOMC at the end of this week. That could ruin it all. Now, hello everyone. I hope you are fantastically well. If you've not yet done so, slap a like on the video and, most importantly, hit the subscribe button because it's about 45% of people that watch this channel don't actually subscribe. So, hello new viewer. Right. Let's talk about some stuff. Now, in the middle element around the DEX trending bit on here. Yep. Cake, Vine, all these kind of stuff. It's starting to look a little bit interesting. Now, BNB is way beyond its all-time high now. It's kind of running away. You've obviously got XRP at a new all-time high. You've got Ethereum trying to get above $4,000. You've got Bitcoin probably going for another retest of all-time high. Solana's going towards $200 again. And more importantly, you've got Dogecoin still doing relatively okay versus what it was not too long ago. That's interesting, right? So just keep an eye on it. The market's looking a lot better than what it was, but we do need to check some other stuff. We'll talk about dominance first because they're kind of the obvious in the room. There's two scenarios, and there's scenario A here, and there's also a scenario B here, right? Yeah, we're going to talk about both of them. So scenario A is we just go down. That's looking quite... Yeah, okay. We had a bit of a retracement and it's coming back down. Now, this is quite an aggressive drop. It's not been like this for a long time. You can argue, yes, a bit of a drop here and there. You got an argument here before inauguration, but they ran up higher. Now, the reason why I say this is because sometimes we do drop and then we go higher, and that's what scenario B is. We go higher like the previous cycle. But you got to remember, there's a lot more altcoins nowadays, and this Bitcoin dominance may not reach as high as what it would have done in the past. Now, Ethereum is vital for the altcoin growth, and we're going to run with that trend throughout this video. Because even still, when we talk about the total 3 minus USD pairs, we are looking a bit better going forward. This is looking good. This is looking better. We need to get above these regions, as I've said before in previous videos, and we need to continue going higher because we were at the lows of 0.31, which was fucking disastrous, by the way, for a lot of altcoins. But we have finally flipped up and gone much higher. But when we go to the high time frames, we're just kind of waiting to see if we break above this structure properly, and we may well start getting a further rotation, and things may be getting exciting. Stable currency dominance is still dropping to the lows, essentially going towards this 5% level. This is where we've dropped off at last time, and we kind of failed, and we didn't go any higher. We had a mini alt season. You remember the ones in 2023 into 2024, and you remember the one from last year in terms of inauguration. We had little runs, little baby runs. We want a much bigger run this time, don't we, boys and girls? Yes, we do, and feel free to agree or disagree in the comments. But reality is things are looking tickety-boo at the minute. But let's talk about some obvious stuff. Bitcoin, hello. We are here. Now, in terms of market analysis, it's not the best in the world, I know that. But we did go for a retracement down to these levels, 114,000, well, roughly give or take around that point. And then we kind of continue going higher. And this is what the weekly time frame looked like, a relatively strong week. But daily time frame, we are still technically ranging, so there's still a lot of FOMC bollocks to kind of unpack. The volume on the ETF around the BTC one essentially stalled throughout the week a little bit. It wasn't as fruitful, but it was enough to kind of tickle your boat essentially. But the Ethereum one continued to be very, very fluid, so that is a big point to talk about. But reality is, this is looking good. We want a stable, steady Bitcoin because Bitcoin, when it throws its toys out the pram, becomes a nightmare for altcoins, obviously. Ethereum. Shall we talk about Ethereum now? If you follow me on X, you'll know what's happening. I've been talking about this level for a while. I've been talking about we are retesting resistance again. Go to the 3-day time frame. It's painting an even bigger picture. But if we go to the weekly time frame, it's going to paint the biggest picture of all. This is a big chunky resistance. We need to get through this point. It's kind of obvious. I know, technical analysis. We need to get through this. And this was a real ball bag of a coin over the last couple of months. And I'm not an Ethereum holder. I'm not an Ethereum lover. Personal opinion, I prefer Solana, but that's my opinion. I prefer Bitcoin as well. But I fully understand that this holds the keys to everything. If Ethereum does well, the whole market does well. It's like the Russell 2000 in the stock market. It's one of those things that you just needed to do well. Just the reality of it, right? Likewise, as I say, this needs to get above this region. I've been talking about it and it's kind of boring for some, but the amount of people that got bummed and burned down here, oh, that's a horrible bit of structure there. Whoa, you. Nice. Anyways, moving on. Solana, looking much better, much healthier, a lot less in terms of lows, not as volatile, in my opinion, versus, say, Ethereum has been. But this, in my opinion, can still run higher. We need to be very, very mindful of where this goes in terms of overall market analysis from the high to the low. We're at certain levels. We're looking pretty good, but we could go much higher. This hasn't had a full blown cycle yet where we've not had any issues. This came out in the last cycle, didn't have as many bells and whistles, remember? And then more importantly, it kind of nuked itself with obviously FTX and Alameda Research, but this could go much higher. So it'll be interesting to see what the dominance of a Solana is at the end of this cycle. Anyways, the final bit we need to talk about is the other ones, the gubbins that make Ethereum tick. Obviously, I am in a Chainlink trade. Feel free if you are interested in trading, jump in the link below. So this is Blowfin. You get 20% back on fees if you jump in the link below. That is for limited time only, so jump in. Also, it is open to UK members, which, as you know, is probably quite hard to get on any website nowadays. If you're in the UK, you can get on this one. But yes, I am still holding Chainlink. It's still looking relatively good. Obviously, dominance is going down, risk on. More importantly here, realistically, with obviously the RSI, it's looking relatively strong. I'm just chilling. I have taken quite a bit off the table. I'm still running with it. I was looking at other trades, which I will go on to in a minute, but ultimately there is some interesting things in the market. Another one that I was keeping an eye on was XRP, but I think the risk reward isn't there for an investor, but as a trader, it might be volatile. But also you got to remember, if this market does fail, sorry, I know I've got to go a bit bearish. If we do fail and flop off a little bit and the money stops a bit, there might be some really good shorts coming. So keep an eye on the market. There may be some opportunities here, but realistically, you don't want to short an uptrend. You want to kind of look for the rotation and the swap over, but ultimately it's quite bullish right now. Another one as well I was keeping an eye on was obviously CRV. A lot of Ethereum pairs or DeFi kind of vibes around Ethereum. Obviously, you got MakerDAO, you got obviously Curve here, you've got other elements around it. And obviously, you know, you could argue the likes of Chainlink as well could do very, very well with a rise in the utility around Ethereum. So keep an eye on it. This has done fantastic, but in the BTC pair, it's a totally different ballgame. So they could actually still rise quite a lot and it could still do very well, even though it's had a bit of a run here. So it could go much higher. Also, as well, other old favorites such as Cardano, obviously AVAX as well. They're starting to break out into certain new levels of interest. So keep an eye on it. If you're a trader, you might well be looking very, very nicely at your portfolio right now. But as I've alluded to at the start of this video, a lot of things are slowly starting to rise a bit. Certainly when we talk about basic elements around search volume, retail comments, we've got obviously the more important thing is retail kind of sentiment and volume coming in. Another thing as well, talked about it in one of my previous videos not so long ago, is the amount of coins that are coming onto the market, which is ridiculous, by the way. This was picked up on Learning Crypto the other day on a live stream, and how many Solana tokens are coming through in the coins tracked. That's still a lot. Far too many coins. 18.9 million. That's a lot. It's probably too many. So yeah, stuff like that is very, very important. But in terms of market cycle indications and stuff like that, you could still argue we're still in undervalued territory. We could still argue we could go much, much higher. If we are talking genuinely 4-year cycle vibes for Bitcoin alone, it could well be very, very interesting to see how we kind of fall off with that or stay in line with that essentially, or if we do fall off with that. But for me, if you bought low and you're selling high, you've won. Realistically, it's one of those things. But BTC dominance could actually be peaking. You know, Bitcoin and obviously the Ethereum strength is adding that altcoin fuel. And then you got the macro side of it, which we do need to talk about. Now, I mentioned before, the Russell is a very, very good thing to keep an eye on because once this does well, you can argue that your assets do well as well in terms of risk on. But obviously as well, you've got the S&P 500 breaking higher here. You know, even the Wall Street, the Dow Jones is incoming towards all-time highs again. You know, all of these things are kind of happening right now, not to mention the fact that there's a gap up essentially on the NASDAQ. There has been trade deals over the weekend, which is with the EU. There's also been more pauses around the China one. So positive news. But we do have FOMC in a few days. That could be interesting. But whether we get a rate pause, whether we get a rate cut, who knows? There's still some, speculation there. And again, that speculation is very, very few and far between right now. 3.1% of prediction-wise believe that we're going to have a rate cut. More likely to be a rate pause as expected. Going into September, though, it's more and more likely we are going to get a rate cut. So, yeah, interesting to see what happens in the next few weeks. There we go. Hope you enjoy. Yeah, watch and shoot. Rotation may be coming not too far away. But I am mindful of August being a bit of a wishy-washy month if tariffs are going to start, and we may well get a bit of a sell-off. But Q4, normally, relatively good. We're not that far away. And the prices are already looking pretty tasty.